Amazing turn of events. Millionaire discovers hidden truth as mom fights for her life. Ryan Caldwell had climbed the corporate ladder with ease, his tailored suits and polished leather shoes, a testament to his success as a high-powered attorney. Yet, on a dry and indifferent Thursday afternoon, a phone call shattered his perfectly constructed world. His mother had been diagnosed with an aggressive, rare illness. The words echoed in his mind, erasing the buzz of his high-profile meeting. His mother's voice, usually filled with warmth and strength, was now tinged with fear. A gut-wrenching realization crashed over him. The stakes of his life, once measured by bank accounts and accolades, had transformed into a desperate quest for a life he couldn't bear to lose. As he sat in his luxurious office, surrounded by framed accolades and the scent of expensive cologne, dread enveloped him. Every untouched document on his desk felt heavier. He could already hear the whispers from peers who might view this as a public relations problem. What will people think? He had often told himself when it came to personal matters, but those questions fell silent against the background rage of uncertainty. Could he afford the treatments his mother needed? Was this where he stepped away from the spotlight to confront his darkest fears? Ryan's decisive mind battled against the tide of anxiety. He could chase more briefs, continue winning cases for the elite, but this would mean nothing if he lost the woman who had molded his very existence. The luxury of his suburban gated community felt like chains binding him to an image, an identity he wasn't sure he could continue to uphold. How could he focus on corporate victories when his mother was suffering? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing moment, the urgency mounted, pulling him toward his childhood home, one he had not visited in years. The thought of facing the past boiled within him, a silent scream beneath the polished demeanor he had crafted. Images of Sunday dinners and bedtime stories danced in his mind, providing a strange comfort as he drove through familiar streets. Yet, with nostalgia came the suffocating weight of unresolved family secrets. Ryan's heart raced as the haunting presence of his estranged father loomed overhead like an ominous shadow. What did he conceal? What had his mother shielded him from? Amid the tender memories, Ryan felt a surge of confusion. Discovering their dark legacy would mean unraveling the very fabric of who he thought he was. Doubt clawed inside him. Was this mission worth sacrificing the life he had built? Could he step into that role of defender for his mother without risking everything? The drifting thoughts spun chaotic questions through his mind as he approached her door, the boundaries clashing. Ryan stood outside the small, faded home, heart pounding like a relentless drum. Would he truly face the demons of the past? Just as he steadied himself, his phone rang, the screen illuminating with a name that could pivot the course of his entire life. Breathless and uncertain, he answered, knowing that whatever followed would further blur the lines of loyalty and ambition, leaving him breathless and with the weight of impending choices crushing down on him. Ryan. The voice on the other end was his childhood friend, Daniel, whose tone suggested urgency. I'm sorry to reach out like this, but I heard about your mom. How are you holding up? It was a reminder of the world he was trying to escape. Ryan could picture Daniel, adjusting his tie as he spoke, always the dependable one who found solace in the familiarity of routine. That was not Ryan's reality anymore. Not great, he admitted, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over him. I'm heading back home now. Daniel paused, the silence between them heavy with options, each one a financial risk or a life-altering choice. Do you want me to come by? I could help with some networking, get you access to specialists or medtech investors. Ryan's immediate thought was to brush it off. He didn't want to entangle his professional sphere with the rawness of familial chaos. But the truth of it gnawed at him. He needed to prioritize his mother's health over his reputation, even if that meant temporarily relinquishing some possessive control he held over his life. I appreciate it, but I need to do this myself. With that, he disconnected. Yet Daniel's offer lingered in his mind like an echo beckoning him to revisit his ambitions with a renewed lens. A part of him felt grateful. Another part simmered with frustration at the connections he once leveraged for professional gain, now threatening to compel him down a road he was reluctant to travel. As he parked in front of his mother's home, nostalgia mingled with tension. The peeling paint and chipped flower pots conjured fragments of memories. Laughter, warmth, and the quiet nurture that formed his childhood. Was this what he was willing to abandon? A shred of himself fought against the harsh realities that awaited him inside. He swallowed hard and stepped inside, and the air felt charged with unresolved conflict. In the kitchen, his mother sat, her frailty accentuated by shadows. Yet, even diminished, her spirit flickered. "Ryan!" she gasped, her eyes lighting up in a way that pulled at him, emotion flooding his chest. "Mom," he breathed, moving to embrace her. The warmth of her presence seeped through his polished armor, melting the walls he had built with sheer ambition. "Did you eat?" she inquired, glancing at him with genuine concern. The once capable attorney felt small in the face of her maternal instinct. His heart clenched at the thought of her suffering. This was the person who had sacrificed so much for him. Yet in the cruel irony of life, he now struggled to sustain her. As they spoke, Ryan felt layers of unresolved history unravel. The illness had stripped away the niceties of their relationship, exposing its raw nerves. Each shared memory tangled with the weight of secrets that had lain dormant across the years. He realized the fight ahead was not just about treatments and doctors, but it involved confronting the past, the estranged father, the familial wounds that kept him from truly knowing his roots. "Mom, about Dad?" It felt like a betrayal to bring it up, but the question sparked a conversation that could redefine their relationship. Before she could respond, the phone buzzed again, pulling Ryan back to the present, illuminating the screen with an unexpected name, a local oncologist, someone who might hold the key to his mother's survival. "Mom," he said, determination flooding his voice. "We need to talk about the future, but first, let's get you well." With unyielding resolve, Ryan accepted the call. Navigating through personal turmoil demanded recalibration. He was not just an attorney anymore, but a son, stepping unceremoniously into the role of protector against both external threats and internal demons. But as he hung up, fresh choices loomed ahead, forcing him into a realm where the stakes were higher than he had ever anticipated. What secrets would emerge in this confrontation at the corners of his fragmented family? The realization hit hard. To embrace future victories, he might need to reckon with the past he had long tried to ignore. Would the obstacles cement his path, or deter him from reclaiming not only his mother's health but his own identity? The call to action was clear, yet the horizon held shadows of uncertainty. Behind every door at the hospital lay the potential for revelation, or for darkness long avoided. The drive to the hospital felt oddly surreal. Ryan's mind was a whirlpool of hopes and fears, leaping from thoughts of his mother battling her illness to flashes of the past he'd buried beneath professional accolades. Each mile felt heavier, the familiar route illuminated by streetlights casting long shadows. He gripped the steering wheel, feeling an urgency he hadn't experienced before. This wasn't just another case. This was about maternal love, healing, and grappling with ghosts he had long ignored. As he parked, Ryan took a moment to breathe deeply, imagining the air flooding his lungs with determination. Today was not the day for hesitation. He stepped inside the hospital, the sterile scent of antiseptic filling his nostrils, tinged with the faint hint of hope, a hope he'd been too afraid to embrace fully. The stark fluorescent lights were disorienting, amplifying the emotions he seemed desperately to contain. Navigating the hospital's maze-like hallways, he caught glimpses of other patients, each with their own battles. Their stories were silent but palpable, urging him to reflect on the fragility of life. Ryan craved clarity. He needed answers not just for his mother, but for himself. When he finally reached her room, the sight of her frail figure lying upon the crisp white sheets was more jarring than he'd expected. Her spirit, however, shone through her pain like a flickering candle, resilient against the encroaching darkness. "Ryan," she greeted, her voice a whisper, yet filled with warmth. "I was hoping you'd come." "Of course I'm here," he replied, quickly taking a seat next to her bedside. "We have to discuss the treatment plan. That oncologist—" "Ryan," she interrupted gently, her eyes searching his. "If I can manage the pain, it's the healing I want to focus on. What does that mean for you? How are you really feeling?" The sincerity of her inquiry struck him. Wasn't it time he addressed what lived below his practiced facade? "I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared I won't be able to help you." She reached for his hand, her touch grounding him amidst the whirlwind of uncertainty. "It's okay to be scared. But remember, you're not alone in this." With those words, something shifted inside him. He began to see an undeniable truth. Acknowledging vulnerability didn't signify weakness. Maybe the messages he had adopted about self-sufficiency were flawed. He wasn't meant to shoulder everything alone. There was strength in connection, in vulnerability, and suddenly, that felt liberating. As discussions overshadowed anxiety, distances eroded. The oncologist arrived, a calm presence bringing definitive discussions about treatment options. Ryan felt himself shifting from passive listener to active participant, driven by the urgency to innovate solutions for his mother's health. He asked questions, challenged assumptions, and began to draw from the very network he'd tried to push away, proving the significance of balance between personal and professional realms. Afterward, sitting outside the oncology department, Ryan's mind raced with the dynamics of where he stood. Nothing had changed in terms of his mother's battle, yet something within him had. That first step toward a personal renaissance stitched together from newfound familial bonds and introspection. He sensed a resilience blooming in his chest, one that whispered he could face whatever revelations awaited. With clarity came resolve. He had made strides today, confronting discomfort, but the battle was far from over. There was still the specter of his estranged father, lurking now more than ever. As the weight of unspoken words pressed down on him, a question loomed in the back of his mind. Could he face the complexities of his family lineage without losing himself? That night, as he returned home, Ryan resolved to explore every hidden truth, every potentially painful family story left untold. His mother deserved that confrontation, and so did he. By navigating this, he would not only seek to heal with her, but perhaps redefine the entirety of his legacy. Standing in his childhood home, he absorbed the layers of memory and emotion pulsating around him. He wasn't just embarking on this journey for his mother. He was reclaiming fragments of himself, long lost beneath ambition and work. But as he settled into bed, his phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing ominously on the screen. The message alone hinted at possible familial revelations that were yet to surface. Swallowing hard, Ryan realized he was about to delve deeper into not only his mother's fate, but the consequences of opening Pandora's box within his own identity. What awaited him now, lurking in the shadows of family history? The screen glowed with the unfamiliar number, its presence commanding Ryan's attention like a siren's call. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the device as the weight of his decision hovered uncomfortably within him. Did he dare to uncover layers of his past when his present was already so painfully fragile? With a deep breath, he unlocked the phone and opened the message. "Ryan, we need to talk. There's something important about your father." The words reverberated in his mind, stirring a mix of anger and dread. The prospect of confronting his father filled him with simultaneous dread and anticipation. He wasn't ready for this, yet the call felt inescapable, a thread he could no longer ignore. As he settled deeper into bed, the shadows of the room clawed at him, echoing the complexities of his familial relationships. Memories flashed through his mind. His father's cold detachment, the silence that had hung in their home like a cloud, pressing him into a shell of achievement without true emotion. Was this the moment to finally break that silence? Ryan's thoughts spiraled, cycling through the conversations he'd had in the hospital, the unexpected connection with his mother illuminating his path. There was power in truth, in confronting the real stories that shaped them. He imagined the possibility of reconciliation, not just with his father, but within himself. It was a revelation tinged with fear, yet the prospect invigorated him. He resolved to reach out, not just to uncover buried secrets, but to reclaim what had been lost. His narrative, his history. Picking up the phone, he typed cautiously, "Who is this? What do you know about my father?" Before hitting send, he had to confront the emotional storm brewing within. Would confronting the past offer him the clarity he craved, or would it plunge him further into turmoil? In the morning light, Ryan recognized that allowing fear to dictate his actions would only continue the cycle of avoidance. He'd spent so long gasping for a breath of resolution, the time had come to swim directly into the depths of uncertainty. Unfurling from bed, he found his morning routine unfolding as if in a dream state. The ritual of coffee and toast usually grounded him, yet today it felt different, almost surreal. He retrieved records from his childhood, searching for connections, anything that could provide context to the message, a hidden truth waiting to be exposed. As he sifted through old photographs and mementos, emotions crashed over him like waves. This exploration felt more than just a search for his father. It was the reclamation of the dignity he'd lost in the face of silence. With each image, he rediscovered laughter, pain, and love, intertwined in a complicated choreography that both haunted and inspired him. Was this his legacy, or the remnants of a fractured past? The answer felt just out of reach, a tantalizing glimpse of what could be. By the time he returned to the hospital later that day, steeled with a new purpose, Ryan felt both empowered and terrified. This journey was about far more than his mother. It extended into the very roots of his identity. He was ready to peel back the defensive layers he'd constructed around himself, but church bells pounding in the distance reminded him that this was not a journey for the faint of heart. As he approached the oncology wing, his phone buzzed again, the tension in his gut tightening anew. It was another message from the same unknown number. It felt almost inevitable, like a startling return of unresolved issues battling for prominence. Did he dare look? With fingers trembling, he unlocked the screen, breathing deeply as the next chapter of his life began to unfold before him, one looking icy, yet perhaps filled with the possibility of transformation. What new revelations awaited him, and could he endure whatever darkness lay in wait? The message flashed ominously across the screen. "I have information that could change everything. Please call me back." Ryan's heart raced. Change everything? Did he truly want to venture into this unknown territory, risking the fragile stability he had managed to build in his life? Conviction and fear battled within him, the stakes pulling him from an indifferent haze into piercing clarity. He slipped the device into his pocket, grounding himself in the hospital's sterile environment. The familiar odors of antiseptic and faint floral arrangements wove a strange sense of belonging, even as anxiety clenched at his gut. He had arrived seeking answers, yet now, with the potential of new revelations looming, he felt as if he were teetering on the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss. The oncology wing was bustling with activity, doctors, nurses, families. Yet he felt fiercely isolated. This place, filled with heartfelt reunions and bitter farewells, was ironic. reflecting his own turbulent relationship with his father. He couldn't shake the memories of his father's indifferent gaze as he chased acceptance through accomplishments. That void within his heart felt heavier now. What if this mysterious thread he was grasping at could knit together the frayed edges of that relationship? Ryan approached his mother's room, where a delicate yet fierce spirit resided. He had witnessed her fight against the illness that ravaged her body, the bravery that inspired him to confront his fears. Today, he would not falter. As he pushed open the door, the sight of her frail figure resting upon the bed sparked an intense flame inside him. She smiled at him, that gentle illumination reminding him why he must dive into the uncertainties ahead. "Hey, Mom." His voice was more confident than he felt. She motioned to the chair beside her, and he took his seat, absorbing her warmth, the only familiarity he felt amidst this imbalance. "How are you holding up?" Her eyes shone with concern, knitting the fabric of motherly love tightly around his chest. And then she changed the subject with the ease of someone who has walked many struggles. "How's everything with your other family?" "Actually, I might know something soon." The words slipped from his mouth before he could reconsider. Ryan couldn't ignore the determination steeped in his intentions. "There's a person who claims to know about Dad." The shadow crossing her face deepened the resolve within him. "I understand that it's difficult, Ryan, but you deserve the truth. You've spent too many years in the dark." Her words tethered him further into the gravity of his decisions. Confronting his father and whatever lies entangled between them was inevitable. In that moment, Ryan understood he was not just searching for validation from an absent parent, but rather piecing together fragments of his own identity. He was driven by the desire to know himself fully, past and present entwined, so he could emerge on the other side, redefined. As conversations shifted and laughter from the nurses outside infiltrated the room, Ryan plotted his next steps. He could feel the dawn of possibility rising within him, shining through the doubts that had once clouded his mind. Secrets were less daunting when they were met with intention and courage. After an hour spent with his mother, he rose to leave. "I'll keep you updated." He leaned in to kiss her forehead, a pang of urgency igniting him as he stepped out into the hallway. He glanced at his phone, the screen showing yet another message. "Call me. It's urgent." Urgency pressured him. He felt that he was standing at the precipice of transformation. The impending dialogue with this unknown entity could be the turning point he needed. What if this was the conversation that unraveled the tightly wound strings of his past, allowing him to reclaim his narrative? His fingers hovered over the dial pad, breath hitching at the prospect of vulnerability. Emotions surged within him, a cocktail of fear and determination boiling to the surface, pushing him to act. The time had come to face. Ryan's heart raced as he pressed the call button, the connection ringing in his ears as he steeled himself for whatever lay ahead. The phone finally connected, and Ryan heard the faint crackle of static, followed by a voice that felt far too familiar and yet shrouded in mystery. "Ryan," the caller said, their tone urgent yet gravelly, laden with the weight of unspoken truths. His breath caught, an involuntary shiver shooting down his spine as he recognized a flicker of hesitation behind the words. "Who is this?" he demanded, the challenge in his voice betraying a mixture of curiosity and fear. He knew he was inviting chaos into his carefully constructed life, but a desperate need for answers propelled him forward. "It's someone who cares about your father. We have a lot to talk about." There was a pregnant pause, and Ryan felt the air thicken with meaning. "Why should I trust you?" he shot back, his instincts on high alert. Trust had never been easily earned in his world, especially when shadows surrounded his father's past. "He needs help. But to understand, you have to look at the truth. Really see it," the voice urged, the intensity twisting inside Ryan's chest. The notion of confronting his father's truth, so entangled in layers of deception, made him recoil momentarily. "You're saying there's something I don't know?" Ryan replied, forcing his mind to sharpen as the prospect of unveiling long-buried secrets loomed. Years of pushing aside questions about his father's absence and disengagement rippled back to the forefront of his consciousness. Was this the key to bridging the chasm between them? Exactly. And that knowledge is essential for both of you. The voice continued, each word dripping with implication. Ryan's heart raced. A glint of confrontation hung in the air. What do you mean? For both of you. What's actually going on? Meet me at the usual place. It's vital. I'll explain everything. The voice pressed, urgency thrumming through every syllable as if the fate of more than just Ryan's relationship with his father rested on this single thread. A rush of indignation flared within him. This wasn't the first time he'd been treated as a pawn in someone else's game. Yet a flicker of excitement battled against his frustration. This could also be a chance to reclaim a long-lost relationship, the very relationship that had haunted him. After the caller hung up, Ryan's mind spun, generating narratives and possibilities. He envisioned sitting across from a stranger who held the missing pieces of a puzzle he had been trying to solve for years. The thought of stepping into the unknown both terrified and exhilarated him. As he navigated through the hospital corridors, he stopped briefly, his heart yearning for reassurance. He turned to his mother's room, wondering if she would understand the risks he was contemplating, or worse, if she would worry for him, her resolve to protect him shining through the haze of her illness. How could he explain that this journey wasn't only about his father? It was about wrestling with the man he had become and the man he aspired to be, one who finally dared to break free from the echoes of his upbringing, to embrace the darker undercurrents of his lineage. Ryan stood still, peering toward the room where his mother rested, her smile a beacon amidst the chaos. In that moment, clarity prevailed. He wasn't merely seeking answers, but rather grappling with his identity, choosing to engage in his father's history for the sake of his own future. He pulled out his phone once more, the location of their meeting glowing on the screen. The tension coiled tightly within him as he moved to exit the hospital. He shifted his perspective, realizing that this confrontation could reshape not just his relationship with his father, but potentially reframe his entire existence, steering his path away from solitude and into the arms of understanding. The air crackled with anticipation as he stepped out into the world beyond the hospital's walls, ready to embrace whatever awaited him. He knew, deep down, that he was teetering on the brink of a revelation that had the power to alter everything. But the question remained, would he have the courage to face it? As he approached the meeting point, he inhaled deeply, preparing to confront the chaotic strands of his family narrative. This was the moment that truly mattered, the defining choice in his quest for belonging. And, as he rounded the corner, he couldn't shake the feeling that the answers he sought could either liberate or bind him forever. As Ryan neared the meeting point, the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that danced across the pavement. Each step resonated with a mixture of determination and trepidation. He felt the weight of expectations, as if the very ground he walked upon could judge his resolve. The usual cafe stood at the corner, familiar yet new, transformed by the stakes that now surrounded it. It had been a mere spot for caffeine and casual conversations. Now, it pulsed with the potential for truth and revelation. He shoved his hands into his pockets, the fabric rough against his fingers, grounding him while chaotic thoughts spun freely in his mind. What if this conversation became a catalyst for change? What if the voice on the other end of the line misused his trust, leading him into a deeper abyss of lies? Every instinct warned him of the danger lurking in the shadows of his father's past. Yet the potential for clarity tugged at him relentlessly. Ryan pushed open the cafe door, the familiar jingle of the bell overhead startling him as it disrupted his inward contemplation. The aroma of brewed coffee filled his senses, mingling with a hint of baked goods. He opted for a quiet corner booth, hoping for a moment of solitude, though the corners of his mind buzzed with discontent. Sifting through memories, he recalled snippets of his childhood, fragments of laughter, arguments, and the overwhelming emptiness left by his father's absence. The retrospective revealed layers of hurt that only deepened with time. But this was not merely about his father anymore. It had morphed into a quest for self-discovery. Was he still the reluctant heir of past wounds, or could he become the sculptor of his own narrative? He glanced around, noting the few patrons occupied with their devices and conversations, blissfully unaware of his inner turmoil. He felt a haunting urgency to know his father, truly know him. Perhaps this meeting could provide answers, but also risk intertwining his path with secrets he wasn't certain he could face. A soft chime alerted him to the arrival of a new figure, pulling him from his spiraled thoughts. A woman dressed in a warm, earthy-toned coat stepped in, scanning the room. Her presence was magnetic, yet laced with an intensity that hinted at experience, wisdom forged through struggles and revelations. It was hard to shake the feeling that she belonged in this narrative just like he did. When their eyes met, something unnameable passed between them, a flicker of mutual recognition. She approached, and without a word, slid into the seat across from him. The intensity of her gaze unnerved him, compelling him to question not only her intentions but his own. "Ryan," she began, her voice smooth yet firm, opening a doorway to conversations he never thought he would have. "You must understand. Your father's life is not as you perceive it. There are layers you need to peel back, truths waiting to be embraced." His skin prickled in anticipation, and he struggled to keep his composure. "What do you know about him that I don't?" It was less a challenge and more a plea, yearning for the missing pieces of his identity. She leaned in slightly, her eyes narrowing, penetrated with an urgency that matched the gravity of the moment. "Your father is entangled in circumstances that might shatter the image you have of him. But it is only through understanding his past that you can forge your own path." Each word struck him like thunderclaps, resounding with a truth that both terrified and exhilarated him. This was no ordinary conversation. It felt monumental, as if fate had drawn him to this very seat, to this very woman at a critical junction in his life. As her words settled, Ryan felt something awaken within him, a recognition of potential, of latent strength that had been obscured by doubt. It was a revelation that ignited a flame of determination to unravel the depths of his family's legacy, no matter how daunting the truth might be. The question loomed, heavy and demanding. Could he handle what was to come? His hands tightened around the edge of the table, the unexpected clarity steering him towards his future with newfound focus. "Tell me what I need to know," he said, his voice steadier now, ready to confront the shadows that had haunted him for too long. And as she opened her mouth to reveal what lay ahead, Ryan braced himself, knowing that this moment could redefine everything he thought he understood about his family and himself. Would he find the courage to accept the revelations, or would the weight of truth threaten to crush him? "Your father was involved with people you could hardly imagine," she continued, her tone dropping to almost a whisper, as though the very words themselves could trigger dangerous echoes. "He made decisions to protect you, but they were never simple. The path he chose was riddled with alliances that could compromise not just his freedom, but your safety as well." The weight of her words settled on Ryan like a cold shroud. Protecting him? The implications churned in his gut. He had only known the man as a ghost, a consuming absence filled with unprocessed rage and forlorn hopes. What kind of life had his father been leading? As the woman spoke of unknown allegiances and covert worlds, Ryan felt an unsettling mix of betrayal and urgency gnaw at his resolve. "Why should I believe you?" he said, swallowing hard. "You're just a stranger." The woman straightened, her expression shifting from concern to resolve. "Because this is your chance to change your narrative. You can define who you are, rather than allow the shadows of your past to suffocate your future." Ryan felt a pulse race through his veins. By merely engaging with her, he was standing on the precipice of something monumental. Every instinct told him to flee. Confrontations with truths never promised easy resolutions. Despite the fear churning inside him, an ember of defiance sparked in his chest. "What do I need to do?" he asked, a tentative steel creeping into his voice. This moment marked the unveiling of a strength he hadn't realized existed. It was daunting, yet liberating. She studied him for a heartbeat, the soft light from the cafe illuminating the contours of her face. "You must seek out the truth, Ryan. You need to redefine not just your father's legacy, but your essence. Start by locating those who know him, connections he left behind. It won't be easy, and the truths you find will test everything you thought you believed." Ryan absorbed her words like a sponge absorbing water, aware that every piece of information she presented could be a double-edged sword. The prospect of facing the unknown filled him with anxiety, yet also an exhilarating rush. The desire for understanding could push him past the boundaries of self-doubt. "Where do I even begin?" he questioned, suddenly aware that knowledge could be both power and burden. The woman slid a folded piece of paper across the table. He hesitated before picking it up, the potential gravity of its content weighing heavily in his palm. "This is a contact. A man named Thomas. He knows more than anyone else about your father's circumstances. But be wary. Not everyone will be forthcoming, and some may see you as a threat." His heart raced at the mention of a contact, the man a mere name on paper becoming a beacon of possibility. Ryan realized that the first steps were daunting yet straightforward. Hunt for the truth. Still, a gnawing question simmered below the surface. What if the truth was darker than he anticipated? As the last remnants of daylight slipped outside the cafe windows, painting streaks of oranges and pinks across the floor, Ryan glanced up at the woman. Determined to push past the veil of uncertainty, he opened his mouth to ask about the risks he might face, but instead, another thought surfaced. "Why help me?" The vulnerability in his voice surprised even him. Her gaze softened, hinting at a reason but layered with complexity. "Because, Ryan, everyone deserves to know the truth, even if it hurts. We are all products of our past, but it's in acceptance that we can truly embrace our future." A moment of silence enveloped them, the hum of the cafe fading into the background as Ryan contemplated the profound weight of her words. Clarity emerged, shining through the chaos of possibilities. "I'll do it," he declared with newfound resolve, the decision fortifying the fragile fabric of his identity. "I'll find out who he really was, for me and for him." As she smiled, a small, sincere expression of approval, Ryan felt a shift within himself. The shadows of uncertainty awaited him, but they would be met with the light of understanding. Reassurance ignited a fire he didn't know he had. With steely determination and the heft of hidden truths clawing at his awareness, he stood from the table, ready to confront a world filled with questions and dangers. Step by step, Ryan would carve his own path out of the darkness. Little did he know that the first step would pull him deeper into a web of deception, where his understanding of loyalty and morality would clash. The time had come to face not only his father's legacy, but his own. What would transpire when the past genuinely resurfaced? The air outside the cafe crackled with a mix of excitement and trepidation as Ryan stepped into the ebbing twilight, a new reality unfolding before him. The streetlights flickered to life, illuminating the narrow path ahead. He clutched the piece of paper tightly in his hand, its crispness both a tool and a weight. Thomas, the name written on it, echoed in his mind like a drumbeat, stirring both hope and an unknown dread. He glanced around, feeling the pulse of the city, a living entity full of secrets and stories waiting to be uncovered. Each footfall felt deliberate, as if he were embarking on a quest rather than a simple search for a stranger. His heart thudded with purpose, yet the stakes of his mission shaped into tangible fears. What if the truth shattered his perception of the father he had long idolized? As he walked, Ryan replayed the woman's words. Redefine your essence. The idea flickered like a candle in the dark, illuminating the parts of himself that had long sat in shadow. He had been so focused on the absence left by his father's departure that he hadn't considered the man's life. A life intersected with dangers he could scarcely understand. The thought of confronting Thomas tugged at the corners of his mind. What kind of man was he? He remembered the last fleeting hours with his father, arguments and silence, grief masked as anger. Would he be capable of confronting the truths left behind? The squall of traffic enveloped him, each honk a reminder of the world's constant motion. He needed a plan. Scrolling through the contacts on his phone, Ryan chose to reach out to a few friends for support, but he paused before hitting send. This broad search felt dangerously personal. He might have to navigate treacherous waters alone. Could he trust anyone else with this darkness? He often felt an invincible sense of loneliness, yet this journey demanded connection rather than isolation. After a deep breath to taper down his anxieties, he considered his next moves. The sky darkened overhead, mirroring the complexities he was about to untangle. The nearest subway station beckoned. Water-damaged posters and flickering lights illuminated a grimy path of possibilities. Inside the train, Ryan took a seat and looked at the city whizzing past the window. The passing landscape slashed by in strokes of neon and steel, an art piece of chaos that mirrored his racing thoughts. Who was he set to become? Beyond the search for his father's truth, this journey could reshape his very identity. The thought sent a shudder through him. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to second-guess himself. At this juncture, every decision would matter. He imagined every person his father had associated with. Fingers pointed in his direction if he didn't tread carefully. With barely a thought, Ryan retrieved his wallet. The crumpled paper of Thomas's contact brushed against his fingers. He needed a way to break the ice, to peel back the layers of deception around the man who occupied a significant chapter of his father's life. When he reached his destination, the subway spat him out into a crowd of bustling commuters. Each face blurred into the next, people consumed by their own stories. But Ryan was on a mission. His focus narrowed on the light ahead, a single lighthouse guiding through stormy seas. As he stepped into the dimly lit alley indicated on the crumpled paper, anxiety gnawed at him alive. He hesitated, wanting desperately to retreat, but reminding himself of his earlier vow. He recalled the woman's resolve, mirrored in his own aspirations. This wasn't just about his father. It was about him reclaiming his narrative. Suddenly, a cold wave of realization washed over him. What if Thomas wasn't an ally but a threat? What if confronting him meant stepping into a world of danger that had shadowed his father? The stakes were higher than he had initially comprehended. In that moment of doubt, Ryan understood. For every answer he sought, there would be consequences. Decisions awaited that would shatter not just the illusions of his parentage, but the core of who he believed he was. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, when a voice disrupted his thoughts from the shadows. Ryan. The name echoed ominously through the alley, sending chills spiraling down his spine. Who knew him here? The embrace of the unknown clenched tighter as he turned to face the source of the voice, heart racing and uncertainty crystallizing. What twisted truth stood ready to reveal itself? Are you ready for the truth? Thomas emerged from the shadows, his voice both commanding and booming, slicing through the tension thrumming in the air. He bore the marks of a man shaped by experiences unimaginable, eyes glinting with a blend of wisdom and warning. Ryan felt the weight of his presence seeping into him, a mix of trepidation and determination igniting within. "Who are you?" Ryan replied, instinctively cautious, inching toward the protective barrier of his own resolve. This was a stranger, cloaked in uncertainty, and yet somehow innately linked to the very fabric of his existence. "Someone who knows your father very well. Someone who can help you uncover the man behind the shadow," Thomas replied, his voice steady and unyielding amidst Ryan's swirling emotions. The pulse of recognition surged through him, that tantalizing flicker of becoming, of understanding. Ryan's gut tightened as he took a step closer, driven not just by a need for answers, but for closure. Why should I believe you? Because no one else can guide you through the dark corridors of your father's past. You've already begun this journey. I'm merely the map, Thomas stated, his eyes unwavering. A shiver crept up Ryan's spine, awareness that this man held the keys to a legacy he was poised to reclaim. Then show me where to start, Ryan said, feeling the tempest within coax him forward, propelling him to confront his father's labyrinth of secrets. Meet me tomorrow at the abandoned warehouse on 7th. It might take some digging, but you'll learn everything you need to know. Your father wasn't just a ghost. He left a trail for you to follow, if you're willing to confront it, Thomas urged, intensity threading through every word. The next day emerged cloaked in uncertainty. As Ryan stood outside the dilapidated building, the air grew heavy, laden with the promise of revelation, each breath mingling fear and excitement. He felt equipped but unsteady, ready yet apprehensive to unearth a past long avoided. When Thomas arrived, he wasted no time, leading Ryan inside. The peeling paint and broken windows whispered secrets lost to time. Yet within those decaying walls, answers awaited. You won't just discover who your father was. You'll also uncover who you are, Ryan. There's a power in knowing. Are you prepared? Thomas asked, sharp eyes assessing Ryan's mettle. Whatever it takes, Ryan replied, steeling himself. This anticipation melded into clarity, a vision of himself stepping away from the shadows of his father and into the light of authentic self-discovery. As they combed through the remnants of old boxes, artifacts from his father's life emerged. Letters cryptically scribbled, photographs capturing moments Ryan had never known, echoes of laughter dying amid the chaos. Each piece revealed fragments of a narrative he had long overlooked. Your father made choices for you. Twisted as they may seem, they were made out of love. He thought they could shield you from danger. A misguided protection, perhaps, Thomas explained, revealing more than just facts, but the emotional weight behind them. With each revelation, layers of anger started to peel off. Ryan realized his father wasn't solely a specter of abandonment. He was a man with burdens anchored deep within his soul. A man fighting against invisible forces. Emerging amidst the forgotten relics engulfed Ryan in both despair and understanding. The dichotomy of being haunted by the past, while simultaneously grasping at the threads of his future. Days shifted into weeks, transforming Ryan into an intrepid seeker of truth. Every meeting with Thomas unwrapped new mysteries, stitching together a newfound three-dimensionality within his understanding of his father. He learned of covert operations, misguided associations, alliances formulated within shadows that would ultimately reshape their lives. With each heartbeat echoed against the backdrop of shared revelations, Ryan began to shed remnants of his former self, the exoskeleton of a man too preoccupied with success and status. He transitioned into something more authentic, carving out a purpose from the understanding he gained. By the time they traced the complexities of his father's life to a narrowing conclusion, Ryan stepped beyond the dichotomy of anger and pain to discover profound resilience. He uncovered not just a father, but a legacy of choices made in love and desperation. Ultimately, this revelation drew him inexorably closer to his mother's plight. The journey had provided tools he had long suppressed, enabling him to advocate for her fiercely, armed with the vitality that understanding oneself brings. Confronting her once more, he saw the renewed love in her gaze, the fleeting flicker of pride as he spun tales of understanding and revelation. "Mom, I've uncovered so much," he began, recentering their connection and opening space for shared healing. The arduous journey unlocked the door to a paradoxical freedom, one that urged him to embrace the intricacies of his heritage, while also shattering the chains of expectation and fear. As Ryan crossed the threshold back into his life, he carried with him an incredible sense of accomplishment and transformation. He was no longer merely an attorney running away from familial demons. He emerged as a man claiming his identity, rising to protect the family that pulsed through him. In accepting the entirety of his lineage, Ryan had accomplished profound personal growth. The man who stood at the beginning of this journey wore the scars of his past like badges of honor now, each revelation fueling both tenacity and compassion. Moving forward, he carried an unwavering resolve, a commitment to be both a son and a protector, armed with insights drawn from the struggles that once sought to bind him. Today, Ryan Caldwell stepped into the light, aware of the force of his own narrative, ready to transform not just his life, but the legacy he would cultivate. Your moment of action arrives now, because this journey of transformation can ignite the flame within you too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because you need to show your support for these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Ryan's journey. Let your voice be heard in this profound discussion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and undertake their own journey of self-discovery. Don't wait even one more second to share and be part of something greater. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.